So I asked and you all delivered. I got a lot of clips sent to me to react to, and I'm excited today. We're going to start with a clip from Jordan Peterson. This is episode 1 of... I should have thought about a name before this. David reacts to the internet, or like David pop clips. Internet reactions. That's what we're going to do today. If you are new to this channel, my name is David Colarossi. I'm a licensed psychologist. And in the evenings, I use events in pop culture as kind of a platform to discuss concepts in psychology. Now, let's get into this Jordan Peterson clip. I think I have a lot of thoughts.
Like, you couldn't put two neurotic people together.
No, that's why lesbian relationships don't last. Well, it is why.
That's going to get clipped.
It is why. It is why, because about 75% of divorces are initiated by women. And the simplest explanation for that is that on average, the most unhappy person in the relationship is going to be the woman. Well, why? Well, because on average, she has higher levels of negative emotion. That doesn't necessarily mean that negative emotion doesn't reflect problems in the relationship.
Yeah.
But she's going to be more sensitive to that. Well, so if you put two women together, well, what do you think happens?
Okay, this is a fascinating clip for me for a couple of reasons. First, Michaela's right. That's definitely going to get clipped, right? It does come from a full podcast where they're talking about personalities and divorces. And Jordan makes it very clear later on that he's not saying that women are responsible for divorces. He's not blaming them for the divorces. And the global context is about personality. There's different personality types, different personality characteristics, and some of those characteristics are more prevalent in men versus women. That's what he's trying to say. But I think that Jordan Peterson gets himself into trouble because he has a habit of saying things that are provocative. I think that a lot of times very intelligent people like to sort of throw a flag out there and say something that is interesting, something that pushes the boundary, something that's provocative, and then they try to explain their way to it. I'm going to say this really inflammatory thing. You're going to be outraged. And then I'm going to show you through the facts or through the data or through whatever my wisdom, how this crazy remark I made is actually right. I think that Jordan, that's it. That is a interaction style that he has. I think he does it certainly for clicks, and it works. We're talking about it. And I think it's part of his ego. I think that he believes he can work his way around to explaining wild comments. The problem is sometimes he's wrong, and he's not good, at least that I'm aware of. I have never seen him walk back a comment. He's not going to say, whoa, I made a mistake. That's not what I meant. What he's going to say is, yes, that's right, and let me show you the data that proves that this really extreme comment is actually accurate. So let's walk through what he says, and we'll talk kind of step by step about what actually is going on here.
Like, you couldn't put two neurotic people together.
No, that's why lesbian relationships don't last.
So there's his provocative comment, and the implication is that lesbian relationships don't last because lesbians are neurotic. Now, that is not what he's really saying, but again, he's not going to walk back the extreme comment. The context here is what he's talking about is the fact that women, on average, have higher rates of neuroticism than men. Now, when we talk about neuroticism in popular culture, we think about it in a really negative way. But neuroticism just means that you worry more anxiety, more distress, more hypervigilance. Well, if you're, for example, parenting, if you're mothering, it might be adaptive to be neurotic. And so evolutionary psychologists would say that's why women, on average, are more neurotic. So what Jordan is trying to say here is that women, if you have two women in a relationship, you have two people that are hypervigilant. That's like the psychological lens that he's using to view this. But again, the way he says it is super provocative.
Well, it is why.
That's going to get clipped.
It is why. It is why.
Like, that part is really interesting to me. So Michaela says, now that's going to get clipped. And instead of saying, whoa, that's not what I mean, let me explain, he says, it is why, and let me point to the data. Like, he doubles down on his argument.
It is why, because about 75% of divorces are initiated by women. And the simplest explanation for that is that on average, the most unhappy person in the relationship is going to be the woman. Well, why? Well, because on average, she has higher levels of negative emotion.
Okay, right there. So that's what I'm talking about, right? So he's made this provocative comment, and instead of backing down from it, he's trying to use data to justify his perspective. But I think in this case, if you look at what he's actually saying, you'll find he's overreaching here. right? So the data point he's looking at is women more often than men are the ones that they initiate divorces. And then he says the logical explanation for that is that women are less satisfied than men, right? And he's pointing to the fact that they are more likely to be neurotic on a personality profile than men. But that connection is not an accurate connection. Because somebody is more likely to express that they are stressed, because someone is more likely to be hypervigilant, doesn't mean that they are less happy. In fact, the data would show that in Western societies, United States, Canada, that women are actually happier than men. They're more satisfied than men. Another way to look at this is utilization of mental health treatment, right? Women more often than men are likely to go to counseling, but men more than women are likely to complete suicides, right? So the connection he's making between expression of emotion and global dissatisfaction, I don't think that's accurate. Okay, now let's talk about the issue at hand. Jordan is trying to explain why lesbian marriages are more likely to end in divorce than gay marriages. And he's saying it's got to be because you have these two neurotic women and, they both have really high standards and they're naturally dissatisfied and they're neurotic, and so it's double trouble. And I'm saying, like, if you look at the data, there's probably other things at play. There's more nuance here, and I think he's oversimplifying it. So, for example, one of the reasons why lesbian marriages are more likely to end in divorce is because, on average, lesbian couples move in and get married faster than gay couples. So, of course, there's sort of more risk for error there. Lesbian couples are also, on average, more likely to be monogamous than gay couples. So there's stricter boundaries on the relationship and more points of friction, right? They have higher guardrails, and so it leads to more distress. Now, I should also say the data also shows that both gay and lesbian couples are happier in relationships than straight couples. But again, you can't just say that and move on. There's reasons for this. Kids are a nightmare. They're the world's worst roommates. And so if you're getting pregnant and having kids, like the more sort of the traditional straight couple, it leads to dissatisfaction. So my point is that there is nuance everywhere, and Jordan, I think, overstepped here by making this kind of outlandish comment and then trying to back his way into it versus just saying, whoa, that's not what I meant, let me explain. Now, you know what doesn't have nuance? You know what is always good for a relationship? The sponsor for today's video, Scentbird. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription platform that allows you to go online and pick a designer fragrance each month. They have over 700 different fragrances and colognes, brands like Prada, Versace, Gucci, and then even indie brands like Skylar, Confessions of a Rebel, and Heretic. Now, I should say, I do not typically wear cologne. I don't buy it because it's so expensive. I got to go into Sephora and there's a bunch of colognes there, and I feel like I'm buying the same exact cologne as everybody else. So I end up just skipping it and wearing deodorant. With Scentbird, the experience is so much better. You go online, you can look through, and they give you really good descriptions of each of the different fragrances. They send them to you. They come in these bottles here. They sent me 3, right? Each of them holds a month's worth of fragrance, and then each one comes with a card that explains to you what's in that particular fragrance. So, for example, for me, the one that really smells the best is this fragrance called Sugar Leather by Unit Nuit Nomad. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. But it's got cinnamon and a leather smell in there, masculine, which is what I think. I really do think I like it smells more masculine. And caramel, I love it. And it comes in this little bottle, and you can open it up really easily. You can see how much fragrance there is. There's so much fragrance. And for $17 a month, I can try different fragrances each month. So because you are part of the PopPsych YouTube audience, Scentbird is offering you a 55% discount on your first month. So I really recommend you go to Scentbird, take a look, and use the promo code PopPsych. All right, look at this next video. This is a boy on the side of the road with his parents watching.
That's so mean. No. I am a bully. Honk if you hate bullies.
Boo parents.
Dude, that's so foul.
Is that fucked? Is that like...
I don't know.
I want to yell at the parents.
In the comments of the video, there are people that are saying, these are great parents, way to hold them accountable, congratulations. And then there are other people that are like, we need to call Child Protective Services. I'm on the Child Protective Services side of things. I think this is horrific parenting. I understand that the parents are thinking that shame drives behavior change, and so we're just going to shame him into not being a bully. But what they're clearly doing is bullying their son. It's like, don't be a bully, and the way I'm going to get you not to bully is by bullying you. It will be much better to think about what's the shift they want in their kid. They want their kid to be more compassionate, more self-aware, more empathetic. So the parents should show those characteristics. Like, imagine if the parent pulled the kid aside and said, when I was in school, I was bullied, and here's how that felt for me. I don't want you to make somebody else feel the way I felt. Make the kid recognize the impact they're having. You could also then say, hey, kid, when I was younger, I had some bad days at home or whatever, and my reaction to that was to bully other people. And now, as an adult, I'm ashamed by the behavior. Let me tell you that story. Right? By doing that, they would increase the kid's empathy, the compassion, the awareness of not only the impact of bullying, but kind of the dynamics around what leads to it. Right? Like, you could really educate the kid and make a real difference. Versus here, this kid is just suffering, and what he's learning is, if you want someone to suffer, if you want to change somebody else, all you do is browbeat them and humiliate them. And I should also say, there is a piece of this which feels very self-centered, narcissistic, arrogant on the side of the parents. They're sitting there, it feels like they're sitting there proudly going to the world, look how I punish my son. This is a self-aggrandizing act that seems very unhealthy to me. Comments, let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, I got one more video. Andy Elliott. This is the guy, before I show you the video, just if you don't know who he is a sales coach. He is, I think, juiced to the gills, and he shops, I think, at Forever 21. And he has tons of followers that want to learn how to sell from him. Take a look.
Garrett, take your shirt off. Come on, Garrett. Take your shirt off, Garrett. Okay, now hold on. Now, Garrett's a killer. Am I right? Garrett, how old are you?
29.
Garrett, does this bother you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, doesn't bother you enough. Because if it did, you wouldn't have it. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
I mean it. Now, come on, put your shirt down. We don't need this. You don't need this. You got kids?
Yes, sir. 2 sons.
Okay. This is the last time I want you to take your shirt off in front of a group of people and not be in the shape you want your children to be in.
What Andy did for me is he kept me accountable, and he told me that I wasn't being my best self. And there's people in this world that can look at that and they can say, wow, he shouldn't do that to him. This is crazy. He's being mean. He's being mean. Or you could use that as a resource, and you could tap into that limitless potential that you have inside of you, and you can become a...
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like what fraternities do. You know, you get all these kids that are rushing the frat, and then they take them down to the basement, and they go, we're going to break you, and then we're going to build you back up so that you align fully with your brothers and this fraternity. But there's nobody in the frat that knows anything about psychology. They all think that they know what they're doing. There's no one there that's sort of like the reasonable plumb line. They're just taking kids into the basement and making them, sort out Fruity Pebbles or what. I don't know what they're doing, right? Fruit Loops. I did not rush any frats. But it's the same idea of like this. Andy Elliott, I think, has an idea of his mind about what it looks like to inspire followership by breaking people down. By shame. Shame drives change, as I said before, and that's the strategy. And you have people there that are going like, man, he's shredded. I love his daughter's genes, and I want to be just like him, and they align. But to me, it's like there's nobody there that is looking at the people in the audience and going, what's the psychological profile of that person, and what does that person need? How about that person? How about the guy behind him? How about the person to his left, right? There are a lot of different people in that room that are listening. And yes, for some, maybe the shame inspires them and it may make a life change. But there, I promise you, are other people in the room that are incredibly disenfranchised by that kind of presentation. When I watch it, I'm going, I can't tell you how I wouldn't want to buy a car from Andy Elliott. right? It doesn't land for everybody in a positive way. And that's true not only for customers, but for people that are learning from him. And so that's the sort of damaging part of it. Now, I will say the existence of Andy Elliott or people like him, his social media footprint, I think it's a marker of our culture, right? The cultural zeitgeist over the last decade, last 5 years maybe, there's been this dramatic shift towards self-awareness, questioning of gender norms, greater awareness of toxic masculinity, right? There's been a shift where people are being encouraged to be more thoughtful in how they interact. And for some, that shift has been annoying and they've disagreed with it. And for others, the shift has been welcomed and very helpful. Wherever you fall on that continuum, for the most part, it doesn't really change people's lives. We may talk about it like it does, but it really doesn't. But I think there is a segment for whom this shift to this kind of elevated thinking has felt like society kind of has turned their back on them. They don't fit into this kind of new way of thinking, and so they feel very isolated and disenfranchised. And couple that with the fact that on social media, creators have to be very careful about what they say and what they don't say. There is a total lack of content that is serving this disenfranchised population. So there's this kind of gap, I think, in the market for people like Andy Elliott that will say, screw all that, be a man. And there's an audience that goes, finally, somebody that speaks to me. I also think this is why the UFC is so popular. I also think that's why they got this power slap now, which is like I can't wrap my head around why anybody would want to attend that, right? But it's like there's this drive for this hyper masculine behavior, right? Which I think is just interesting. I haven't totally thought through this, but I do think that there's like society as a whole has pushed this direction towards, less distinct gender norms, and then you have power slap and Andrew Tate becoming super popular. I should say, I don't think that Andrew Tate and Andy Elliott are the same. To me, Andy Elliott is well-meaning, misguided, but I think his intention is to help the people in the audience. I think he's very well-meaning, genuinely. The pants are killing me, but I think he's well-meaning. I think that the Andrew Tates of the world are misguided, and I also don't think they care how they really impact their audience. That's my view of it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for listening. Oh, and hit the like button on this video. If you like this is the first one of these videos. This is the first of this type of video I've done. So if you like the format, leave a comment, hit the like button. Super helpful for the algorithm. And lastly, thank you, Scentbird, for sponsoring today's video. Everybody, please check out the link below. I smell wonderful right now.